What's up, everybody? Welcome again to the Chasing Creativity podcast. This is episode 19 with progressive house producer Dezza. All right, episode 19 is here. Hope everyone's having an awesome day, evening, night, wherever you're listening, and having an awesome end of the year. It's crazy. It is December. This is, of course, releasing on the 19th, and we're moving right into to Christmas and New Year. So a couple things. We'll continue to put out episodes on Wednesdays, so there will be an episode out on the 26th, on the 2nd, just after New Year's. So look for all that. Next week, just to mention, since I'm speaking about it now, we will be doing an episode with Acoustic Labs. So I'll speak more about that maybe towards the end of this episode, but if you're familiar with his work, he has quite an awesome platform on YouTube where he does mostly acoustic guitar, also in conjunction with a lot of other instruments that he plays himself. So it's a really cool episode, but before we get there, let's talk about things for today's episode. Now, that first track you just heard, that is from a producer named Astroside. So Astroside is a friend of the podcast. His song that was just shown out there is called Ancient Attitude. So if you'd like to check him out, you can check him out on SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/Astroside9 or on Spotify at Astroside. And just let's pause here. How you spell Astroside? Because I feel like people might be wondering. That's ASTROCIDE. So just to be clear there. If you'd like to follow him on Instagram, it's ASTROCIDE.RIFFS. So yeah, go check him out. Show your support. Listen to his music. Of course, thank you to him for allowing us to share out the song. If you'd like to have songs shared out on a given episode, simply reach out to me. Reach out on Instagram. Reach out over email. That is chasingcreativitypodcast@gmail.com or chasing.creativity.podcast on Instagram. Both great ways to get in touch with me, and I'd be happy to share your music. Now, today's episode, for me, this is a crazy one because I am a huge fan of his music. It's Dezza. So Dezza was awesome enough to sit down and we jumped on Skype and knocked out this episode. And for those of you out there who are not familiar with his music, he is like an OG of progressive house. I mean, to name a few just incredible accomplishments off the bat in 2018 alone, he's charted number 1 on Beatport Trance for the track Sunburn, co-released with Rolo Green. He's charted top 5 in progressive house with the track Law of Attraction. He's released on such labels as Anjunabeats, Silk Records, Enhanced, Zerothree, I mean, just to name a few, and appeared on and was featured in guest mixes of or on Above and Beyond's radio show. So, I mean, across the board, it's crazy that we did this. I feel super fortunate to be able to sit down and chat with him, and he's just the coolest guy, super easy to speak with, and I think it turned out to just be a really, really cool episode. So we'll get into that here in just a minute, but if you'd like to go and check out his music aside or just show your support, on Instagram, he can be found at Dezza Music 84, so that's DEZZA Music, MUSIC 84, or on SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/Derek Sylvester, so DEREKSILVESTER, or you can search Dezza on SoundCloud or on Spotify, or of course Beatport. Go show your support, check out those tracks on Beatport, and if you are the type to do so, go and purchase that music, because that of course helps out the artists. So yeah, we're going to jump right into the episode. Again, thank you to him for coming on and doing this, and thank you to all you listening. This thing is continuing to move forward, and having you all out there listen makes it means seriously so much to be able to do this. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Really stoked to be able to do this, and thank you to Dezza and all the guests who have come on before. So that's it. We're going to jump right into the episode. But before we do, actually, a couple last things to mention. If you are enjoying episodes, and you'd like to show your support in a very small way, go and simply just rate and review on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you listen. Really, iTunes being an important one. This podcast is in the music category, and getting those reviews and ratings really makes a difference to chart in music, and I do want to see that happen. Ideally, I want to see it grow. I want to see it move up, and then more people are exposed to it, and it just means for more exposure and more guests coming on podcast episodes. So if you are enjoying them, just please go and do so. It makes a huge, huge, huge difference. So that's really it. We're going to jump right into the episode. Again, next week, I will say that we do have Acoustic Labs coming on. Very excited about that. And lastly, as we jump into today's episode, we will be sharing out a song from Dezza. So just to give you a sense of his music moving into it, I know most of you are very familiar, but of those who are just hearing his music for the first time, we will be playing out a track titled Expanse. And that's it. A lot that we'll be talking on lastly, is his new album coming out in 2019, this being a feature of that. So look for that. Very excited for that coming around the corner, and very excited for all the cool things that are going to be happening for Dezza in 2019. So I hope you enjoy the episode. I'll speak with you all again soon. Dezza, what's up, man? How's it going?
Not too much. Thanks for having me on the show.
Dude, of course. So you're up in Halifax, yeah?
Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, yeah.
Hell yeah. So it's kind of funny so far on this podcast, it's been like a lot of Canadian dudes.
Oh, okay.
I think there's like a theme starting to emerge. I don't know what it is, but like Rhett from Mousetrap and Lunar and Ash and Riot of Immersive and
there's all kinds of us.
For real. And
We're taking over.
Exactly. And a lot of amazing music producers up there. So I mean, first of all, thanks for doing it. I think it speaks to Canadians, man. You guys are all so nice. So
I guess that's what people say, yeah.
Some random guy hits you up on Instagram about a podcast, and it's like, all right, we could try this out. Yeah, cool, man. Cool. Well, yeah, dude, I do. I really appreciate you doing it. So, you know, I kind of looked a bit to see like where I wanted to start, you know, with this given episode and where we could kind of dig in. And I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, like 20 years, right?
Yeah, I've been doing music production for quite some time. Yeah, I'm 34 now. I probably started when I was around 13 or 14, but I never really started releasing stuff until, you know, the later years. So maybe like releasing music that's okay-ish, I would say probably 10, but I've been doing production for about 20, yeah.
Okay. So there was like that 10-year kind of period learning how to do. I mean, that's everyone across the board.
Trying to figure out my direction, like what I wanted to do, that kind of deal, you know?
Yeah. And as I understand it, one of your very first releases was picked up by Tiesto, and he like played it live.
Yes, it was actually a bootleg of a song that I did, and I can't quite remember. I was making hip hop at the time. That's where I started. I'm a huge hip hop head, and that's what I was doing. It was all sample based. Everything was sample based. So I took this track, and it was like 126 BPMs or something, I think, or whatever. And I just I ended up making a dance track out of it. And it was the first time I'd ever done it. And I can't remember how it got picked up, to be honest. It was a guy, Christopher Lundberg, picked it up, but I can't remember how he found me, to be honest. But he sent it off to Tiesto's people, and then the next thing I know, I'm getting YouTube clips of him playing it live.
Damn, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that must have just been such a trip. So at that point, were you about 10 years in at that point? So you kind of had like figured out the direction you wanted to go. You released this track, and then that's when things kind of started to pick up a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of knew that I wanted to lean more towards the electronic stuff. I did a stint DJing on cruise ships for about 4 years, which kind of opened my mind to that kind of music, because everything where I'm from and pretty much North America as a whole, it was all mainstream hip hop and rap, top 40 kind of deal. Right. There was no real electronic influence back then, but I saw that when I was on the cruise ships, because there was such a diverse demographic of people from all over the world.
Interesting. Yeah, because for here, I'm based down in Phoenix, Arizona in the States, and like 2008, around that time, was like electronic music just blew up, and
it just exploded.
Yeah. So that's really cool that you had this kind of formative time where you're trying to figure out, where you wanted to take your music, and then things kind of clicked. I'm thinking like right around that time, like 2008-ish, and then
exactly. Yeah. I was doing the hip hop stuff for a while, and I was just kind of like just making beats and stuff. And, being from a small town, there's not too much going on here. And it was there'd just be like beats that would just sit there, and I wouldn't be able to get them out at that point in time. So as soon as I made my first dance track, and then Tiesto's playing it to 20,000 people, it's like, okay, maybe I should do this.
Yeah. Dude, that must have been such a crazy feeling. And then so you're more like tuned in with like, this is the path, and then kind of developed, because you have like a very strong progressive house sound, and so that, of course, so that's where this kind of formed out of a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, dude, I think about that, and I mean, now looking at today, like 2018, you have a track that has topped #1 in trance, right, with Rolo Green.
With Rolo, Sunburn.
Yeah, dude. So looking back and seeing like what today's like, you must just not even believe it, really. It's just like that's so amazing, and it's cool that it's like been this process over quite some time to develop this sound and really work it out, and then here in 2018, things are fucking clicking,
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, and I think streaming services have a lot to do with that. Music is so much more accessible now than it used to be, and I think it's great. Like people are listening to the music now, which I think I'm still making the same music that I've kind of always made, but now it's easier for people to get their hands on it.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. I mean, you look at, that's the end of the year, right? So everyone's posting statistics from Spotify, and the stream numbers, they're insane. It's like millions and millions of streams for these top producers. And it's like, people are just eating it up.
And even if my music was pulling in those kinds of numbers, say 5 or 10 years ago, there was really no way to kind of track that or see. But with the Spotify in general, with their analytics and stuff, and the stats that you can see, you can target your audiences better. You get a full breakdown of where everything's coming from, whereas 5-10 years ago we didn't have that. Yeah And it's so cool too. I feel like I've mentioned this way too often, but it's amazing that now today you can have a pretty inexpensive setup on your computer and produce music and put it out for free, and people can hear it, and you can send it into, say, like deadmau5 streaming on Twitch or something, and get picked up, and it's all so accessible now, where it's like, for sure, 10 more than that, you'd have to have a label, you'd have to get signed, you'd have to have physical discs. Absolutely. There was no other avenue of doing it. You'd have to send your stuff in. Like, I think when I was starting out, I kind of remember like there were a few labels that I was into, and like the only way that you could get a demo to them, you'd have to mail it.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was a common thing back, like, in the 90s and stuff like this. Like, I was visiting Steve Hellstrip, the Thrill Seekers, a couple weeks ago in London, and he was pulling out DAT tapes and explaining stories of how he used to get what he'd have to go through to get tracks signed, and that was mind blowing. But yeah, it's much easier now to get the music in the hands of the right people.
Yeah, it's really cool, and I mean, just starting this little thing too, and I in the same sense, it's so awesome to be able to reach out to producers now. Like, you have things like Instagram where, you and I can start a conversation, or two different producers can start talking and say, hey, do you want to like collaborate on something? Then suddenly you have like two awesome producers putting out something together, and it's like, it's like all of this availability now and access to information and access to communication, I think does such a really, really cool thing for music.
Yeah, I've had a few collaborations that have come about just on Instagram alone, or, like Facebook Messenger and stuff like this. Like, I did a collaboration with Estiva earlier in the year. That was through Instagram, I believe. We had been in touch, but I just kind of said, like, let's work on something. And then that came about. And then now there's one that I'm working on with a duo called My Friend out of the UK.
Okay.
They've got some releases on Anjuna. They played one of my tracks in their guest mix a couple months ago. So I posted it on my story, and then they sent me a DM and said, let's work on something. And now we've got a track that's almost signed.
Hell yeah, dude. That's so cool. I love that. And I feel like there's now this avenue. I don't know if you use Discord at all too, but it's very similar to Instagram, but it's the same thing. It's like that now there are these ways for these little communities to build out of music producers, and everyone's chatting, everyone's sharing music, everyone's like connected now. And it makes it so much more exciting because like you kind of become part of this little community, and the people, where they are, you talk with them. So it's really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. Discord is something I've downloaded. I've got an account. But I just, maybe I'm too old school. I can't figure it out. I need to sit down and figure that thing out, because I keep getting the notifications all the time that, if your name's mentioned or something like that.
Right. People tag you. Yeah.
Yeah. But I've got to get into it and find the time to do that. Julian Gray's pretty,
he's serious about it.
He's on that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm in his, and honestly, that's really one of the reasons I honestly feel like that was one of the reasons this even happened, this whole podcast, because I got to know Julian in that Discord. He was really kind enough to jump on one of the first episodes. And then moving forward, I could say, hey, I interviewed Julian. Do you want to come on an episode? And, people know Julian. It's all right, that sounds cool. But without things like that, I mean, this, imagine without things like Instagram and some of these communication tools, like, you're siloed,
Yeah, things over the last couple of years with the combination of that and the streaming music and the amount of people listening and people getting involved, it's over the last 2 years, it's been wild.
Yeah. So not to kind of change gears, but you kind of had this moment where things were clicking in 2008, and then over like 2008 to now, there's just been like so many fluctuations, and electronic music has changed so much. Like, what's that been like, just kind of navigating that space? Because I mean, there's like genres that have started and then kind of disappeared too.
It's been a long road. I mean, the first stuff I was releasing was quite, a really good, like, melodic progressive sound for that time. And then there was that big EDM boom.
Yeah.
And I had sent some demos off to Spinnin' Records, and they latched on. So my sound really changed then, because I was trying to follow the trends. And I'm kind of glad that I did that, because now I know not to do that.
Right.
So it was it was a rough time for me, like when that stuff was happening. Creatively, because I was always trying to follow the trends.
I think that kind of anyone faced with that same kind of opportunity, it'd be hard to say no. You see these things blow up in front of you, and you're like, all right, here's this new genre. Like, I don't follow this all that much, but like future bass just like exploded, and then so many people had been producing, and they switch over and they're making that style of music because it's like this wave, and
electro house was a big one too.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I remember when I was first meeting with spinning. I'm not going to name any names or anything, but I went down to Miami one year for the music week there.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of sat down, they said, you should kind of get away from making trance.
Mm.
And I'm kind of sitting there going, yeah, I don't think I really make trance. And they're like, yeah, it's trance. And I'm like, no, it's progressive house. And then I walk away from this thing going like, I shouldn't be letting people tell me what to do, kind of deal. But, I still work with those guys. I had a release earlier in 2018, a couple with them. And to be honest, I just sent another demo off to them today. It's another vocal collaboration. But yeah, no, you don't want to, I forget what I was getting at there, but.
Well, yeah, I mean, I hear that it's kind of tempting. It can be tempting, at least. I've seen it, and just from an outside perspective, right? When people get notoriety, suddenly people are like, "Oh, you should try this. You should try that," and it's like kind of sticking to what you love and what you know. I think can be really challenging, and it's
exactly
and just seeing from my experience that listening to your music now, you've found like what your sound is. You've stuck to it. You stuck to progressive house, and now it's so awesome because I think there is a huge platform for progressive house and for a fit for your style, of course, like with Anjuna, and so now it's totally like opened this door. As long as you kind of stayed with what you wanted to do, now doors are really opening for that sound.
Absolutely, yeah. And one other thing that I always had people telling me, like you say, people suggest like, oh, you should do this, you should do that. People were always saying, oh, you should put a vocal on this, put a vocal on that, kind of deal. And I'm kind of sitting there going like, I do enough with my layers and melodies and stuff that I don't really need them.
Yeah.
But back, I don't know how to put it, but vocals were something that I just didn't think that I needed at that point. But people thought I needed it, and I was just like, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep making instrumental tracks. Like, beat it.
Yeah, exactly. And at the end of the day too, what I would imagine from your perspective is like, or anyone really, if they're making something and then all these people come in and say, hey, try this, then you do it. Even if you get recognition from that, it's not going to be fulfilling at all. It's going to be like, well, it's not you at that point. That's
an excellent point.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
So yeah, and this is kind of funny that it leads into this, but I just saw that recently you released a track where you were actually doing the vocals, but you had kind of kept that secret almost for like 10 years. And just to mention that track, it's almost funny how that lines up because, dude, you have an amazing voice, and you hadn't, yeah, totally, and you hadn't leveraged that at all or put that into any tracks or anything like that.
Yeah, I only started the collaboration with Matt Fax called Sweet Dream. I kind of just threw that over to him because like when I come up with these vocal ideas, I kind of just like have them, and I've done enough work. I always like collaborating with people with this kind of stuff, and also because I haven't produced a lot of like full vocal tracks. I mean, they've just been remixes. So when I sent it over to Matt, he loved it, and that was that. And then it ended up on Spotify's Mint, which is like their biggest playlist. So I was like, okay, we're onto something here. And then I've got a ton of ideas that I've got just kind of hanging out. So waiting for the right collaborators.
Dude, that's amazing because I was actually so I love that song. Sweet Dream is an amazing song. But I was of course. But I was thinking Snow Angel, which is new. I did not realize that Sweet Dream was your vocals. I thought that was like you had co-produced with Matt. And
exactly. Not a lot of people knew that, and I'd always put it in my post saying, "Oh, by the way, that's me singing."
Dude, but, yeah. That's incredible, man.
I look at it as doing something different. I mean, nobody really kind of does that. Like the first thing that comes to mind is like Calvin Harris. I mean, he does his own vocals, and he always did from day one. But I'm not too sure of many others that do it.
Oh, agreed. Yeah, I know barely any. One I can think of is Julian, but then it was so funny. Well, yeah. But I mean, it's a small group, right? But he was the same way. I wrote him. I was like, oh, this is an amazing song. And then I saw him post. He's like, I did the vocals too. I was like, what the hell? Yeah. All you guys are just fucking way too talented.
It's just another thing you can add to the list when you're saying, check out my new track. Oh, by the way, it's me singing. And we keep bringing Julian up, but we're actually working on a collaboration right now that has my vocals in it.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, that's something that'll be around in 2019 for sure.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. He's a really cool guy and super talented as well. So like seeing him get a lot of recognition over like the last like 6 months, year has been super cool.
Yeah, it was the weirdest way that we met too. I mean, Zerothree hit me up. Jamie from Zerothree, and he said, I've got this remix that I want you to take a look at. And I listened to it, I was like, holy crap, like this is awesome.
Yeah.
Which was the Pippa Moran and him with their track called Touch.
Right.
And that's how I met Julian. I'd never met him before. I'd seen his name pop up, obviously because of the Mousetrap stuff, but we've only recently just met over the last like 6 months.
Yeah. Oh, that's a funny story, and it's funny how these things play out, because I've heard that a couple times too. It's like people get almost paired together by labels. They're like, hey, go look at this and like address it. I'm thinking of like Rhett was on from Mousetrap a little bit ago, and he's put out some stuff with Atlas, and it was almost the same kind of thing. So it's funny how these things just, I don't know, they just come together, and then it's just another person in this little community, and fuck, everyone's so cool and so nice too on top of it that it's really cool.
Yeah, that's another thing that's great about doing this kind of music is everybody's just chill. Everybody's friendly. Nobody's there's a couple egos floating around, but there's not too much of it. So
right.
Everything's very personable, and like even if you're in like a rut, if you're in a creative rut or something, and if you just want somebody to talk to, there's always somebody you can reach out and be like, dude, I'm having a rough go.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on in your life kind of deal. And that's good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's one thing, to speak to that too, is like Discord, people share whips there. So you'll get, guys that are just starting out and they're sharing their music, and then guys who are 3 or 4 years ahead and they've put in the time and they can pull out things and be like, hey, go look at this, and this, and that's incredible. And some of those guys in Discords are like just on that first, they're just kind of getting signed now, So yeah. It's super, super cool. And I couldn't agree more. I haven't run into really anyone that's just been standoffish or has too big an ego. And really, I mean, it's just, it's really cool.
That was something that I had to deal with, starting out the first say 5 or 6 years of releasing music is, you'd want to send stuff to people that you look up to. And you don't always get a reply, but now I think people are much more open to it and people are listening to it. Like I get sent stuff all the time. And just because of my experiences, I try to make the time to go in and listen to that stuff, because just even a simple reply back saying you're on the right track, maybe do this or do that. Good luck with it kind of deal. That's, that means the world to people.
Oh yeah. Yeah, totally. And, it's funny that you mention it that way, because that's been a common sentiment as well on given episodes. And I think it's like there was this wave of like 5 years ago where it was more siloed and people didn't know each other as much. And if you sent something, sometimes you wouldn't get a response. And now things have changed and everyone is like much more supportive. And it is. I totally see that same thing. And the people mentioned the same thing. They're like, hey, when I started a few years ago, no one got back to me. So now I really try and make an effort to get back to whoever responds or writes out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like with that kind of stuff, like I never kept a chip on my shoulder, like, oh, I sent it to that guy. He didn't listen. He's a dickhead. You know what I mean? It's just like you got to, you have to kind of think, he's probably way too busy to be listening to my shitty whips. But like now, like you say, now it's much easier and people are more understanding and more open.
Yeah.
And that has a lot to do with why the music's so popular as well. I mean, I guess in a roundabout way. Yeah. Is because the community.
Oh, I think so for sure. I mean, you go to shows and everyone at the shows are so supportive. I mean, my girlfriend is like, she'll go out every weekend to a club that's really close to us, and she's built this like friend group that is like so supportive. And I mean, it's just the whole community. It's the musicians, it's the people that go to shows.
Yeah, like I went to ABGT 250 last September, and I kind of went into it just thinking like, what's this going to be like? But that whole team, they were so, gracious and like, open arms. Like you go in there and, they looked after me. I was able to hang out backstage and meet everybody.
Yeah.
It was just something I wasn't expecting, right? Because you think something on that magnitude, you're going to get some egos and stuff like this. But no, it was good.
Yeah, and for a producer coming up and then kind of getting to a level where you've been doing this a while, but you've met now your idols, I'm sure, in producing, and you've like now achieved these things that I'm sure you were looking at 5 years ago and you're like, damn, that would be amazing to do. And to see that it's like welcoming and people are nice and accommodating, that must feel amazing. Because imagine the opposite, if you show up and it's just like egos and like everyone's a dick, like that'd be horrible. It'd be such a letdown,
Yeah, no, it was that was a really good time at group therapy. I mean, it was, and the like the crowd as well, like the people that were there, and people that you'd bump into. Like people were hauling me over, Dezza. I was going like, how do these people know who I am? This is weird. But at the same time, I was like, take the time out to say hi to them and stuff like this, and good.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
And then after that, that goes into a lot of networking too. Like I took the time, out of what I do, and I flew down to do it just to do the networking side of things. And since then, like I don't know if it just motivated me creatively or if the relationships on a personal level helped with getting all the plays that I got this year on the show. But it was a good move.
I think that makes a huge difference because now today people know who the artist is, who they're listening to. It's not just someone behind like a couple pictures in a CD disc or something. Like people have Instagram, and they know the artist that they're listening to, and people get a sense like, okay, is this guy genuine? Like, is he like a kind person or is he an asshole?
Exactly. People look into that more. People want to know the story. They want to know the personality. They want to know they're not, listening to, a robot.
Right. Oh, for sure. And if people are kind of tuned into like, okay, this guy's an asshole, they're gonna. There's so much music out there too that, people will be like, all right, I'm gonna go listen to something else. Or there was a like a dubstep DJ who, I mean, this is really fucked up, but he was like having girls come onto his tour bus and like raping them. I'm trying to remember the name, and now he's of course disappeared. Like he doesn't tour. No one, like you do not hear his name now, and it's like you can't. You got to be nice to people, and of course that's the ultimate extreme. But you got to treat people well. Yeah,
You're not allowed to rape.
Not allowed to rape.
That's not something you should be doing.
Yeah, I kind of
frowned upon.
It is frowned upon. Yeah. I mean, I went with the extreme there, to really like hammer down the point. Let everyone know listening. It's like, hey, if you were thinking about it, don't do it.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, man, it's really interesting, and it's cool. I mean, look at like being able to reach out to you. I've been a huge fan of your music, and I'm just like a bedroom producer as a hobbyist. I start this thing up, man, and I wouldn't have thought this quickly in I'd be able to do this. So like, it's just another kind of point to this whole thing. It's super, super cool. So
yeah, and this is a great idea, like to be interviewing, people and put it out there so people can listen to that, right? Like that's another thing that wasn't really around when I was starting out. There's so many different things that are available now for people to get into the music. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I've just been a huge fan of podcasts for a long time, and I think it's cool because if it's like free form, you just actually get to know that person. It's not question answer, and it's like, all right, that's cool, but to sit with someone for an hour and like really trying to understand their ideas and like who they are. I think that, someone who listens leaves with that and they're like, all right, I feel like I know this person a little bit now, I don't
Right on.
Yeah. So, let's kind of, if you don't mind, I mean, all this is fucking awesome, but so how I understand, we've been talking a little bit on Instagram and you'll work for like 3 days on, 4 days off. So on those 4 days, are you just going in and like dedicating that time to just working on tracks and like disappearing and putting in the time and then
you can't that's one thing about if you're starting off making music, you don't think that you're going to make money doing it. Don't ever think that you're going to be able to pay the bills with music, because it's like unless you're just lucky as shit and you end up blowing up overnight, You got to get a job. And, that's what I'm doing. I work 4 on, 4 off. I've been working for Air Canada for 13 years.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. And yeah, it doesn't make me depend on music. So I don't get discouraged when, a 36-cent royalty payment comes in from a record label. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, yeah, and that's the thing too. I mean, so you see all these streams come out right now, like the numbers, but I think Spotify pays like 0.006 cents per stream, and it is robbery. Yeah, it's like,
I don't get upset about it because like what I've said before is that the music is accessible.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's something they're going to reevaluate it in the future and start paying us more. But you take that 6 cents, and then if you've released it with a label, and if you can find a label that's going to give you a 50-50 deal, that 6 cents is now cut to like 0.003 cents or whatever. Like, it's just, yeah.
Right. Well, one thing you mentioned is like, so when you're doing 4 on, 4 off, you don't have to depend on music. And I think for the sound you're trying to make, that's really important, because if you're putting yourself in a position where you're like, okay, I want to make money with this, I have to make money, a person is going to gravitate towards like what is really popular right now.
Exactly.
I'm going to emulate that. Right. And so for that reason, you have the kind of creative freedom to say, okay, this is what I do. I have 4 days on, 4 days off. When I'm off, I make exactly what I want to fucking make. And that's it.
Exactly. And then, my work days are pretty much a write-off. I try and keep up with emails and stuff like this. But then, the 4 days that I'm off is mainly all music.
Yeah.
And creation, which also gives there's a little bit of pressure there, because it's like, I could sit here for 2 days and have nothing and then go, oh geez, I only got 2 days off. I got to go back to work.
Right. Well, you've put out a ton of music in 2018. I think I read there's like 18 releases for 2018, something like that.
Yeah.
That's insane, but it's...
I haven't actually gone and calculated the whole thing. There might be more. I can't remember, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's
You build up a vault, and I guess that's a lot of tunes when you put it all together like that. But if I sit down for 4 days and I'm on a good roll, I could come up with 4 finished tracks, because it would really only take me a day to put together a track. If you want to go back and do some mixing or find finishes to it, and maybe another day. But so you build up a vault of tunes, and you're only releasing music. You got to release something, say, once every month to remain current. So if you can put 2 out a month, 3 out a month, do a remix here and there. If you can build up a vault and then slowly release them, you're good to go. Yeah,
because I have, of course, noticed, right? It's not like the typical. It's not as common now to see the full album release. It's like, as you mentioned, like 2 tracks a month, because then you're always releasing. It's like, hey, there's that new track, and that's what keeps people engaged, because there's so much music out there right now that you almost can't go and disappear for 6 months and then be like, hey, there's this huge release I'm putting out,
Unless you're somebody huge, there's no way you can do that. I mean, the shelf life of this stuff is like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
People get bored of it after 2 weeks because somebody else has put something up. So you have to keep pounding the releases out, 1 or 2 a month at least.
Yeah.
And then, and then they're getting the radio spins and all this stuff, and it'll snowball if you're able to do that.
Yeah. Well, then what's it like when you're addressing a new track? So do you like, of course, your sound is very melody focused. So are you usually starting with like kind of playing on a MIDI keyboard or like on the piano to play with a melody, or what's that like?
Usually what I'll do, like to start tracks, is I'll come up with like kind of a key center. I can't play anything. I'm not a musician. I don't know how to play. I can hit the piano and know which notes go with which, but I can't sit down and play a song. That's not going to happen. But yeah, I'll start with like a key center. So whether it's like a one note kind of chord pad that'll just like a stretched pad or whatever that has one of the tools I like to use a lot. Soundprank showed me this. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Soundprank.
No,
but he's another Canadian producer. He was releasing with Anjunabeats and Silk way back in the day. But he's doing a lot of film work now and scoring and stuff. He doesn't really release electronic stuff anymore. But he showed me this thing. It's called Pulse Stretch. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No.
It's a pretty basic program, and you can put a sound in, and it just exponentially stretches it out. So you can stretch like a 2-second chord and stretch it out to say be 5 minutes long. And whatever that program does, it brings out all the melodics of the chord. It's like a beautiful pad sound. Anyway, I use that a lot. Just to start a track, and then, you know, maybe I'll put an arpeggio or over it, or I'll put a bass line underneath it, and that's how I start most of my stuff.
Interesting. So that kind of gets like the foundation going with a track. You can kind of start hearing things, and then from there, is it just kind of trial and error? Like, do you feel like I guess I had a conversation just recently, and a lot of times a person can be doing something totally random and a melody will pop in their head and they're like, ooh, okay, that's good. I want to go play with that. Like, what are those next kind of steps like?
Yeah, like I said, it'll start with that key center, and then it goes, I'll probably put like an arpeggio in and then a bass line. And then as I'm doing that, you might just hear, whether it's the harmonics within a reverb or something like this, you might just hear where a lead line should go, or where you could fit another pluck, or if you could put, you know, add it like any other kinds of chords or something like this. I just kind of hear it.
Yeah.
Like it's a weird thing when it happens.
Yeah.
It's like, how come I didn't hear that before?
Yeah.
You know?
That's such a fun thing to think about, because it's almost like a gift. I think of those things as like gifts from the universe, because like it's like, why?
Absolutely.
You know, like, why did that pop into my head? You know, like, what the hell was that? And then you can sit in front of the DAW or whatever and kind of piece things together and make something out of it. You know, yeah.
But one of the things I've been doing, one of my good friends, I've known him, you know, for years and years. He just lives around the corner. He's got a studio in his basement. He does a lot of recording local musicians and stuff like this. And he's got a really nice upright piano in there. So sometimes, you know, I'll go over there, we'll have a couple drinks, and I'll just, you know, start out on the piano.
Yeah.
And just put a couple notes together. We'll record it. And then I'll go, okay, then we got to do this. Then we got to do that. Then put a bass over it and all this stuff. And it just kind of goes from there. And then by the end of it, we've got this kind of track that's like a full, like, you could use it as like a movie score almost.
Oh yeah.
You know, they're you know, I haven't even put any drums on the thing yet, but
right.
it's like a real raw, organic sounding kind of whatever you want to call it. But that's good for the brain anyway.
Yeah. Have you thought about taking any of those and then applying it in a different sense? Like, because you mentioned it's like raw, there's no drums to it, it's like almost fit for film. Have you ever thought about like playing in that realm at all, or is it more using it as a tool than to like take it to the next level and put it into a track?
I would love to be able to do film and just to be able to score anything, like whether it be, you know, a trailer or just anything. I would love to be able to do that. But most of the time when we get those raw ideas out that are all live instruments and stuff like this, it's really hard to go into it and then just put, you know, like electronic stuff into it. It's really hard to do it. But yeah, no, I kind of just do that just for the creativity aspect of it.
I see.
Maybe I'll take kind of some of the ideas and redo them, maybe within, but I rarely use the samples and stuff. My album's gonna have a couple of those tracks on it with vocals and stuff.
Oh, cool. So it's more. Yeah. Would you say that's kind of like more of like a chill approach in comparison, like kind of taking those raw elements and keeping it, or have you kind of transformed it into like a heavier hitting progressive house track?
Like, you mean like the album all together, or
well for the pieces that you had just mentioned, like yeah.
Sorry, I'm lost here.
No, sorry. You were mentioning like you kind of took those and then you were applying those for the album. Like, would you say that application is more? Maybe I'm misunderstanding it too, but are they like more of like
Those are just kind of like just ideas, and they're just going to be as they are. I'm not going to go in and turn them into a banging progressive
Yeah.
house club track. Really, those are just the ideas. But my point was, it's good to be able to get out of the shell of sitting in front of a computer and go and do stuff like that. It's good. Good for the brain.
Yeah. I would totally agree. I think like kind of changing setting, like now you're not, as you mentioned, sitting in front of a computer, you're actually like sitting in front of like your brain is going to work in a different way. You're going to play the keys a little bit different. It's going to sound different, and it's going to trigger different ideas.
And that might just be for me or whatever, but it's like I can't play anything. So the last thing that I do is sit in front of a piano and try and play it, right?
Right.
So
right. Oh, that's cool though. So then for like this just kind of brings immediately to mind like law of attraction, right? It starts with that beautiful piano sound. So coming up with that, like conceptualizing that idea, was that like purely just like because of course you want like chords within MIDI, but like is that kind of how you conceptualize that intro for the piano piece?
That piano came near the very end of that production. And it was a sample that I found on Splice, and it's a Sample Magic. It's in a Sample Magic pack. You're gonna have to dig. I'm not gonna tell anybody what it is.
People are gonna be digging now, yeah.
But I love using samples. Obviously, that's how I started in production. So I find that the way that I've been using samples recently, like and manipulating them and editing them and chopping them up and stuff like this, it's my past with doing that is definitely been a benefit to what I'm doing. But yeah, that piano was a sample with Sample Magic, and it just kind of fit.
Yeah. Perfectly. It totally. That's so incredible because it does. I mean, it fits like perfectly, and that's a beautiful track. I love how.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how that kind of ambient piano starts, and you kind of bring it back into the middle of the track. It's done really, really well. So, people are going to be definitely digging now.
Yeah, and I mean, I've even reached I think it might have been another Instagram connection, but Sample Magic. The people that made the sample pack are now, we're talking now, and it was all through Instagram.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to be working on a sample pack for them. So,
ooh, cool.
Yeah. That's the next thing that I've got to do. We're going to have a call and talk about what they want to do. That's something I've never done before.
Yeah.
A sample pack is, considering I use a lot of samples, it's going to be hard to make them. But I'm definitely up for a challenge.
Yeah, dude, that's cool. So there's like a lot of things, like new things in 2019. So that's exciting because how I always look at this, like just looking at artists and listening to music, I think that's really cool that you can be doing this for so much for such a while, but still there are always new opportunities. There's always like a better song out there to write. There's always something to approach. And I mean, I think this is like one good example, but I'm sure for like 2019, you have things already lined up and things you're working towards. Yeah,
absolutely. We've got the album's going to come out. The album's pretty much done. But since the announcement of the State of Trance 900 gig, we're going to push it back a bit, just to line up with that.
Mm-hmm.
There's the album, there's a couple remixes, there's a bunch more collaborations. It's gonna be a good year.
Yeah, that's awesome. And any like talks of tours in 2029? We're like going on 2019, and I'm always talking with people. I'm like, hey, so are you touring this year? Or what's going on?
Yeah, like earlier in the fall, say like around August, I got an email from a guy called James, and he just started up his agency called Epica Artists. And he wanted to take me on for bookings. I kind of knew that my name was in the hat for State of Trance 900. I never thought it was going to happen.
Yeah.
I didn't really, mention anything to him, but he was enthusiastic. He's a go-getter. So he's got a bunch of stuff kind of in the works. It's hard to announce what's going on until it actually gets finalized. But there's a bunch of stuff. Australia is going to happen in February before a State of Trance. I've got a residency in Liverpool in the UK, which is every 2 months. It's an event called Government.
Okay.
That's going to be happening starting in March. But
yeah.
other than that, everything's kind of, not 100% confirmed, so I can't really talk about it. But there's going to be touring for sure.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, and it's crazy. I pull up, things while we, do these given conversations, and yeah, I mean, State of Trance 900. That's a huge event, and being, I'm just seeing here like the list for progressive is not all that large, man. So that's really, really cool. That's got to be something that's just...
Yeah, I was kind of shocked by that. I talked to a Steva, and he kind of said, Ruben told me your name's in the hat for that event. And I thought, okay.
Yeah.
That would be cool, but I'm not going to get my hopes up. That's another thing you can't do. Don't get your hopes up on anything. Like, I mean, I've been hearing just from my agent alone about all these shows that are people that are interested in booking and stuff like this. I don't, don't even tell me that. I don't want to know about it until it's actually, confirmed, because you don't get your hopes up for anything.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, he said that my name was in the hat, and then all of a sudden, like 2 weeks before, they're like, yeah, you're on. I was like, oh my God.
Oh shit.
There we go.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. That's really, really cool. And it must just, I mean, just hearing you speak about it, it's got to be exciting too. I know you don't want to kind of get your hopes up, but then when things click and you're like, oh shit, okay, I'm going to do this now, and getting ready for that must be
yeah.
Such a trip.
My main focus right now is the State of Trance 900. That's my focus, and then whatever happens after that happens, right?
Yeah,
I could go in there and train wreck the whole set. I don't know if I should put that. I don't know if I should put that on air. Anyway,
we can.
No, I won't. It's not gonna happen.
No way, man. And like, that's an incredible opportunity, man. That's so sweet, and that's just got to really set things up for 2019. You go, as you mentioned, you do that, and you're like, hey, whatever the hell else happens, things are gonna happen. But it's like whatever else happens, you gotta be pretty stoked at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, you can't get your hopes up for anything. Like, anything could happen. Yeah, but there's definitely going to be some touring for sure.
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned, like, you can't get your hopes up. What would you tell to people in that kind of position where they're maybe a year in and they love doing this stuff, and it's, what would you say to those kind of guys?
Don't get discouraged by anything. Focus on your art, and because that's what it is. It's art and it's creativity. Just focus on that. Don't worry about what people say about it. If for me, I mean, I live in a small city in Canada where there's not much, there's nobody else really around that's doing the same thing I'm doing, and there hasn't been since I started doing it. So if you don't have support from people kind of around you, like your friend group or whatever like this, don't let that get you down. Just focus on what you want to do, and that's it.
Yeah, and that's a cool point or an interesting point you make as well, because it's like, if you feel like you're in a place where there's not a lot of other people around you doing the same thing or whatever, I do think it's important to kind of almost embrace that. And then, as we were speaking about earlier, it's like, then people tend to go online. It's like, okay, you find kind of those little communities who are supportive, and it's like people all around the world. And so even if you're like,
just go to the internet.
Yeah,
you can find people.
Exactly,
one of the other things is you got to have a routine in your life too. Like I said, you can't be doing, don't sit there and think you're going to make $1 million overnight making music. It's not going to happen.
Right.
So, get a job, get a routine, and everything else will just come naturally.
Yeah. And it takes a lot of time during the week too, because like I know of people starting out who they've gotten signed to some compilations now, so they're like really doing it, but they will work on music every free moment that they have. When they're not working, they're producing. It's gotten to this. Yeah, it's competitive too, because you're now working and that person's over there doing the same thing. So it's like, all right, if he's doing it, you kind of have to do it too.
Yeah, you can. I try not to think about competition.
Yeah,
it's you can't get too wrapped up in that, because then it just creates stress, and
right.
You just got to go with the flow. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's a good point, because you go down that road, and then it's like it can get stressful. Yeah.
And everybody's different.
Right.
You can have guys that can sit in a studio chair for 24 hours and just work on music and bang out music, but you might be different. And if you can't get something within the 5 minutes, the rest of your next 5 hours is going to be terrible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everybody works differently, so you can't compare yourself to anybody else.
Yeah. Have you found, and I totally agree, I think that's really important to kind of tune into, is like, how do you personally like address, like, you have to be really inquisitive of like how you feel, because if you're sitting and you're at your computer and you're working on something and it's not clicking, maybe that's like, it's time to go take a walk, do something else. Like, you have to know for yourself, like, is this something I typically can push through, or is this like I gotta go? And I'm guessing over your career working on music, you've understood well, like in yourself, when things are clicking, when things aren't, when you got to change things. You have to kind of get a sense of that, I'm guessing.
Yeah, everything that you do, like on a daily basis, like whatever your routine is, like whatever happens, if you throw something in the middle of that, it just mixes everything up. You have to have a good routine. You can't. For me, if I'm sitting there and I'm having a block, I'll just stop and then maybe go on Splice and just start going through samples. Maybe I'll find something in there that I can use. Maybe I can find something that I like right now that I'll download that I might use 2 months from now. Go out, take the dog for a walk.
Yeah.
Go out and look at nature for a little bit. Like, get out of your chair. Don't sit there and think you have to create something right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I think you're right on. If it's like kind of forced in that moment too, you might put it out and you're like, okay, I got it. And then you look back like 12 hours later and you're like, okay, no, this is, if you're forced.
As soon as you feel like you're starting to force something, then you are, and it's going to fuck everything up.
Yeah. It's funny, man. It's just funny how it's a game of that too. And I think for both sides, people who get to that level, right, where they've been producing for a long time, you, as you mentioned, kind of learn about yourself as to what's working, as to what's not, like where you need to what you need to do to navigate this path so you're most effective when you're working on music. And it's the same I've learned for like that creative aspect too. Like, people do really bizarre things to get in more like or to get into like a better creative space, like stay up all night until they're like almost delirious and then they start producing. It's like you find these kind of tricks or whatever that work, and then you're learning about yourself kind of along the way.
Yeah, exactly. Like if something doesn't come to me right away, like I said, I don't force it. And you like pull up Spotify and go listen to some artists that you're into, or go. I like to listen to film scores and stuff, or go pull up Spotify's relaxing piano playlist, and you might hear something in there. You know what I mean? You should never feel like you're forced. Sometimes I'll sit down. Maybe I'll sit down for an hour and have like a full kind of like before this interview, I was working on something that just stopped working on it, and I was like, maybe I'll come back to this another time. But it was just basically just an instrumental idea. I don't know if I'll do anything with it, but down the road, somebody might say, hey, do you want to do a collaboration? And I'll say, hey, look, check this out. What do you think? And then the next thing you know, you've got Matt Fax and Dezza Sweet Dream. You know what I mean? That's how you have to look at it. You don't have to think you got to finish the full song. Just keep your ideas and you know.
That's a good point, because I do this just totally for fun as a hobby, but I'll have things that are like 50% done, right? And that's a good way to think about it. It's like, go put it on the back burner. If you feel like you can't finish it, save it, and then if you're doing a collab, then send that off. Then that could, maybe someone else can look at it and be like,
absolutely. You said that H word, the hobby word. That is a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good way to look at it. It's a hobby.
Yeah.
It's kind of a creative outlet. And that's how everybody should look at it.
Yeah.
It's like it's doing something that you like doing. Don't think of it as something that you have to do to make money doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that's important, because if you like, so I've found myself in two different boats, right? So before I had this podcast, which has taken a lot of time in a good way, I spent a lot more time on music, but my thing was like, I played music my whole life, but I was like, I want to release on Mousetrap. Like, I want to get a track just on a compilation. Like, and when you're in that mindset, then you're listening to the kind of stuff that comes through, and you're kind of trying to frame your sound to that. And then when I totally switch gears, I'm like, I just do this for fun. I'm doing, and then now I feel like the stuff I do is like more true to myself. I really do. And sometimes you have to almost remove yourself a little bit or change gears. Then you're like, oh yeah, I was totally like lying to myself before when I thought I was being honest, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, that whole Mousetrap thing, and Dead Mouse is Canadian. Yep. I mean, he's someone that I look up to enormously.
Yeah.
He played here in Halifax one year. It was the first time he ever put the mouse head on.
Oh yeah.
Like, it was just like mind blowing for me. This is back in like 2008, 2009 or something like this. And I've been following his stuff from the beginning.
Yeah.
So you sit there and you're like, I would love as well to have a release on Mousetrap.
Yeah.
But, I've sent stuff off and it's not been listened to, or it's not been responded to, or whatever, but I'm not going to let that get me down and get in the way of my creative flow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
and
for sure.
That's how you have to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you're only doing yourself a disservice if it's like, oh, hey, these people over here don't like it. If you're then getting down on yourself and you're like, all right, well, I might as well just stop. It's like, who are you hurting other than yourself? It's like, do what you love and
exactly.
Yeah, make your sound, and then, screw it. And then look at, like, once you do that, then again, like, this is like such a common, like, I think it's way harder to do than people realize. But like, if you're true to yourself, you do what you want, then like doors open up, and the whole time you're putting out what you want. And it's like, it's almost as like, that's the way you got to do it,
Yeah. Just, do your own thing.
Yeah.
And then if you build it, they will come.
Yeah. That's so funny you say that, because I was in a Uber like 2 days ago, and this guy, it was like kind of an awkward conversation, but he said that. He was like, if you build it, they will come. And like, now,
it's so true.
Yeah.
And you have to find, it's right place, right time sometimes as well. You've got to find somebody that really believes in your stuff. Like when you're releasing music, you got to find a good label. You got to find somebody that's going to put your stuff out, somebody that believes in it.
Yep.
And somebody that has that network of getting the music in the right hands, and then you're good to go. I mean, Zerothree was a big thing for me. I'd been trying for like since the beginning of Zerothree, 3 or 4 years. I've been trying to get records signed with them.
Yeah.
And then finally the one came, and then a few more after it, and it's been great.
Yeah.
But the A&R there is a great guy. And he's always believed in my sound. It's just, it took a while to get that perfect record.
Right.
You know?
So, and then speaking to that too, I think this ties into people who are kind of starting out too, like how much of it is, of course, you have to be putting in the time, making your sound, developing this whole kind of on one path, like your art, but then how much of it is like knowing the people, meeting, like networking. I mean, I have to assume that that's just part of it. You can't just sit in your bedroom, make music, no one ever hears it, and expect like,
no, exactly. Developing personal relationships is a big thing, and even if it's just a Skype call too.
Yeah,
that's the same thing.
Yeah, that's.
But personal relationships are a big part of it. I had met, I've met a lot of people over the last couple of years, and I think that's helped me a lot.
Yeah. No, it's
meeting them personally.
Yeah. I play with these ideas at least. I'll talk with lots of guys and buddies who are kind of in the same kind of, I don't know, situation as myself, just making music for fun or whatever. But it's good to hear from someone who has done this, and it's been like this whole process, to hear what it's like from your perspective. Because I don't know, I think those conversations are so important, because just over this hour, you really get a sense of like the whole process from start to finish, what it was like. It wasn't easy. It wasn't like, oh, well, in 2008, I rolled out of bed and I started producing and I got famous, No, it was like a lot of work and time put in. And I think that is important for people to hear, because then when they're just starting out, they get, you can get inspired by that.
Yeah, it's been a long road for me, and I mean personally, I've never really had an interview that's gone this in depth about what my journey's been. So it's really great that you're doing this kind of stuff in the form of a podcast.
Awesome, yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate that, and it's been super cool for me as well. I feel super fortunate. So yeah.
Absolutely,
yeah, but one thing, a couple things. So like moving into 2019, I have like one suggestion is to like just try and play in Arizona. that would be absolutely epic. But
visa.
I know.
Get a visa.
Well, that's like a common theme now on this podcast. I swear to God, because lots of Canadian producers have come on and talked about this, and that's the thing. Like to tour in the States, you have to have a visa, right? You have to have a certain type of visa just to perform, which is like really tough to get, and it's expensive, and it's like there's all these hurdles. It
costs money. It's you got to provide a lot of stuff. You've got to get lawyers involved.
God.
I've heard that it's a little bit easier to do now. Like, I mean, more of them are getting approved quicker. But it's just one of those things where I'm getting the bookings elsewhere where it's easier.
Right.
I'm just going to go with that for now, and then let the other ones kind of snowball into each other. But like I just heard from my agent a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying there's like 16 cities in the States that would have me if I was down there.
Yeah.
So like, let's get rolling on the visa thing.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that I've got to do. It's added to the long list of stuff that I have to juggle in between work and all this stuff. But hopefully I can get down there to the States.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah, that's going to be, I hope that works out, and that would be absolutely epic. Cause I've, having these conversations with other people from Canada, I'm always like, yeah, we'd love to have you. And it's like, oh, we'd love to play there, but we can't because this stupid visa thing, it's like so annoying.
Yeah, it's a little crazy what you guys require to go down there. I mean, if you were an artist that wanted to come up and play in Canada, the only thing you need is a letter from the promoter saying he's scheduled to play this date, and then maybe he's going to Toronto, and then he's flying home. That's all you need. Yeah. There's nothing else involved in it, as far as I know.
That sounds reasonable.
That's it. That is reasonable.
Yeah. And I don't.
Trump's gonna build that wall for you guys. I mean, he's building it.
It's the Canada wall's next. Yeah, first it's Mexico, then it's Canada. It's so ridiculous. And I'm in Arizona, so I was born in Tucson, Arizona, which is like an hour south of the border. There's a huge population of Mexican people, and I mean, I eat Mexican food at least once or twice a week. Like, it's part of my life, and it's like. Then everyone's like, oh, so I don't, it's interesting. It's totally
a tricky situation. I mean, I don't like to get political with anything, but I mean, it's as far as from an artist standpoint, I'm not going to get into anything else.
Yeah.
Cause I really just try not to look at it. But from an artist's point of view, it should be easier for us to come down there and play music for the people that like to listen to our music.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
we're not coming down there and stealing jobs. There's nobody else in America that can make the song that I make.
Right, exactly.
So if there's people wanting to see it, then whatever.
Right. Yeah, that's so ridiculous. I know. That's a funny way you put it. It's like you're not stealing anything.
That's how you have to put it. That's what it is.
I know. And I agree. Like, I personally totally remove myself. Like, I don't look into it as much, maybe even as I should. I'm kind of just totally disenfranchised by the whole thing because I feel like politics is like completely bought. So I can't get interested and excited, and it's ridiculous. But that in itself, that like we can't have artists from a different country come and play music. There's 50 hurdles. That's insane.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you know what, I could sit down, get a lawyer, and do all this, and probably be touring, in the spring.
Yeah.
But it's like, do I really want to fall into that trap and start doing that?
Right.
Yeah, I guess it's one of the things that I'm going to have to do. I'm going to have to do it.
Yeah.
But it's just I don't know. It's unfortunate, but
oh yeah. I get it. And when there are other opportunities, it's like, bookings come up and it's in a different country. It's like, all right, well, that's an easier decision. Like, I don't have to. Yeah.
And it's also shitty because most of the, like, if I go and look at my stats for everything, it's all 90% of it's all in America. Well, I wouldn't say 90%, but a majority of all the streams and the listens are coming from the US.
Right.
So it's definitely, I'll be down. I'll be down.
Hell yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, there's electronic music in the States is just huge, over the last 10 years. And it's always funny, like, I'll hear there's like that old Eminem song where he's like bashing Moby. He's like, no one listens to techno. And it's like now everyone listens to electronic music and techno.
Yeah, and people kind of like shit all over Eminem.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. Like totally switched. And he's like, he's just not who he used to be. I used to be like those first two Eminem albums, I was a huge fan. Like I was like 13 and it was like the edgiest stuff you could imagine, He's like talking shit to Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera. I was like, it was like amazing, and now he's kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy how music goes in waves and it changes, and
yeah, totally. Like
now you live in the moment, but then when you look back, you kind of go, holy,
right.
And like the whole synth wave thing.
Oh yeah,
like, there's some wicked stuff out there in that genre. That's for sure.
Yeah, man. But dude, I do hope that would be fucking awesome if that happened here around the corner. But I mean, who knows? I'm excited. Like it's cool that we're kind of wrapping up the year now too, because I like to try and get a sense of what's going on in 2019. And obviously you have a ton of stuff on your plate, and if it did turn out that you were touring in the States, that would just be even more epic.
Yeah, I'll definitely be down. But yeah, there's the main focus right now is the album and the State of Trance gig. But yeah, the album is still it's like 90. It's done. I could release it now as an album, but I'm still coming up with new stuff that I can throw into the mix.
Do you have a date for the album or not?
We
yet?
We don't have a set date.
Okay.
But State of Trance is February 23rd.
Cool.
And in that set, I'll obviously be playing some IDs from the album to help promote it.
Yeah.
That's the only reason we pushed it back. Otherwise, it would have been probably released. I'd say early January, like right away, but we decided to push it back a bit, which I think is a good move.
Yeah. Oh, that's going to be awesome, man. Can you imagine a better way to like introduce an album as IDs on State of Trance? That's fucking crazy.
Exactly. Yeah.
that's insane.
That's my next hurdle is I got to figure out what I'm going to play there. Because there's obviously the tunes that did good this year, and there's the new ones and stuff like this, and you only have an hour to play, and then you have to think about who's playing before you, who's playing after, and all this stuff as well. So it's definitely a challenge. It's something I've never had to deal with before.
Yeah. So that's fairly new. Would you? I mean, do you mean like on that scale, or like with people before you and behind you, or in terms of it being new?
I've been DJing,
right.
the whole time I've been producing and opening shows and doing stuff, but not on this scale.
Yeah.
Like it's I think the complex holds 36,000 people or something like that.
Oh my god!
And for them to have a progressive stage, I think they just started it up like the last big anniversary event, or maybe there's two, like maybe 850 and 800. They started a progressive stage, but it's awesome to see that they're still doing it. Yeah. And like Armin said when he made the announcement about it, that he sees that a lot of people are into it.
That's awesome.
So we're going to keep doing it.
Fuck yeah. It's I've noticed that too. I think it has kind of almost come around a bit, because I'm a big fan of progressive house. Like when I got interested in all this, I immediately gravitated towards more of the melodic. Like I think what really tuned me, and of course, like I'm a Deadmau5 fan, and are you familiar with Enzo Bennett?
No.
Okay.
I'm not.
He's
Sorry.
done no, it's okay. He's done some releases on like the We Are Friends compilations. It's very like an interesting kind of melding of electronic and like progressive house, I think I'd say. But that kind of like the melody focused progressive house stuff is like, I caught on to that immediately. And I do feel like there's almost like, it might just be my own bias because I'm interested in it, but like a little bit more of like it's coming back a little bit.
Absolutely. Is his stuff, does it sound mousy?
It's like mousy, but it's his own take on it. It's very like progressive housey, or I don't know how to describe it. I can send you some links after.
That's another really cool thing that I think about that, about Mousetrap, is that like a lot of the stuff has, obviously huge influence from Joel's music.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really cool thing. And I mean, when he tweeted about stepping back because he didn't think that the label was doing the right thing for the community, I totally completely disagree with that. For him to be able to take artists that take influence from his music, and maybe some of the chords that these guys are making sound mousy,
right?
Like, who cares?
Right.
It's good. and you've influenced somebody to sit down and make a song,
Right.
it's a good thing.
Oh, I agree. I feel like he's almost kind of in that realm. Like he's almost started like a little genre a bit. Like there are people that pull on his sound, right? You'll hear that kind of middle breakdown where it's like a very iconic chord progression that he is known for, you know? But I mean, screw it. It's like, it's good.
You can't sit there and go, oh, he's copying this guy, he's copying that guy. It's like, no.
Yeah, it's I mean
you look at pop music, it's all the same.
Oh,
Everything's the same.
Yeah, that is like to the extreme. It's like formulaic at that point, you know.
Exactly.
People look at, it's like, okay, what was huge this year, or like this month, like how do I emulate that? And it's, you know, it's but I think that kind of nice middle point where it's like someone's own sound, but they're pulling, of course, I mean, there's so many people producing now, so it's like impossible to really be like to sound totally unique, you know. There's all this different melding of different ideas and different genres kind of coming together and different influence from different artists, and it's awesome. Like you find really, really cool ways that a track is approached. It's like, okay, that's new, but of course it's in a given genre where everyone's pulling on different ideas of kind of the same
if you can take inspiration from like a handful of artists that you listen to, and incorporate that into one of your own productions where a little bit of it sounds like this guy, a little bit of it sounds like that guy, like that's where you want to be at, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think anyway.
Oh, I totally agree. And then over time, that kind of middle ground that you find is like, okay, that person's sound. And, you know, so many people are listening to music, so many people are making music. An artist will kind of carve out a little space where it's like you're known for that thing, you know? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, man, it's so cool, dude. And I really appreciate you doing this. And it's always weird like reaching out because, you know, I know of you, I know of your music, and like, you know, just hitting you up on Instagram and you being cool enough to be like, yeah, cool, let's fucking do it and see what happens with this.
I try to respond to anything anybody ever sends me or says or whatever. I try to respond to all of it, and especially if I get, you know, if somebody reaches out that's doing something that's forward thinking, I'm all over it.
Hell yeah!
So it was a no brainer for me,
dude. Awesome. And it really, if say like 6 months, a year, what I say this, you know, kind of towards the ends of episodes, but like really, I truthfully mean it. If you want to do this down again in the future, I'd love to do it. And what I hope for this is like, you know, 5 years down in the future, we've knocked out like 10 of these, you know, like who knows? Yeah. Like that's just that's where I want to see this
count
thing
me
go.
In, man. I'm always down for a chat. That's all this is, really.
Yeah, it is, dude. And then, you know, like right off the bat, you know, you and I, we've only chatted over Instagram, so we don't know each other or anything. But I mean, how is it to get into a conversation right off the bat? Because we're talking about things we both enjoy. It's like, let's talk about music production and music. I mean, it's easy, you know.
Oh yeah, it's you can talk to anybody if you're on the same wavelength. It's, you know, it's like riding a bike. Like if you know, like you can get on a bike and ride it. It's easy.
Yeah, man. Well, hell yeah. Well, dude, honestly, thanks again. 2019, I'm really fucking stoked to see what comes of it. I know there's going to be lots of cool things that of course we've mentioned today, but there'll be other awesome things. So yeah, man, really appreciate it.
Likewise, man. All the best with the show.
Hell yeah. Thank you. All right, and that is it. Episode 19. I hope you enjoyed it. Man, I know I look for things to say at the end of these episodes, and really, there's nothing else I can say except thank you to Dezza for coming on. Thank you to you for listening. These are awesome experiences for me, and being able to do this and then releasing them on Wednesdays. It's just super, super cool. So thank you. I hope you did enjoy it. Go support, go show your support, listen to his music. Again, you can find him on Spotify, SoundCloud, on Instagram. So Instagram is Dezza Music 84. Go follow him, show your support. SoundCloud, just search Dezza. Spotify, same. And of course on Beatport, go check out Buy the album that we were speaking about on today's episode, when that is available, soon after February, as he mentioned, since it would be after A State of Trance. And that's it. Go show your support. I hope you